Welcome back to another episode of STEM in Stilettos. This is your host, Zofia Morales. And today, ladies, we are going to talk about You Belong Here, building confidence and careers in STEM. So if you have been out in the workplace for a little while and going, do I really fit in here? Am I just trying to force myself into a space that wasn't really made for me? Or if you're still younger and looking for ways into this particular field of study and asking yourself, how do I find mentors, programs, communities that actually support me? You have arrived at the right place today because we are going to discuss all that with the amazing and wonderful Juhie Radia. She is a data analyst and is a passionate climate advocate, driven by a belief that the power of STEM can build a fairer, more sustainable world. As a King's Ambassador for Industrial Cadets, she supports the Engineering Development Trust's mission to open STEM pathways for young people by sharing her own experiences and championing the next generation. Juhie hopes to inspire more young women to see themselves in STEM careers and to bridge the employability gap for those entering the field. Welcome, Juhie. I'm so happy to have you here with me today.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. I'm excited to do this.
So I like to take off the veil a little bit after we've introduced the guest because you hear all these wonderful accolades and kings, scholars, and champions and this kind of stuff. It's like, okay, she's different than the rest of us. So tell me a little bit about how did you find your way into the world of STEM and ultimately into what's effectively data analytics?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. So weirdly, I actually never really wanted to always do STEM. I feel like there are some kids who are like, yeah, like I want to become a doctor or I want to, I don't know, study space, but that I wasn't that kid. Like science, I was like interested in it, but more just because it was a subject in school. But I actually thought I would study languages. So when I was like doing my 16 plus exams and 18 plus, like I was all geared up to study linguistics or something like that at uni. And then when I was thinking about career prospects and I guess like career flexibility, so thinking about the prospects I'd have in the future, I thought I wasn't super clear on what something like linguistics or studying languages would offer necessarily. So that's when I thought, and that was around 18, and I thought, okay, let me like try and move into the STEM space. So I ended up studying chemistry at university. So still nothing data related, not computer science, not a coder or anything like that at all. And then when I finished university, I was working in a lab for about a year and then COVID hit. So a lot of labs were shutting down and I needed to find another job that I could do remotely or that kind of offered that flexibility. And whilst I was at university, I'd done a lot of like roles in different societies as a little like consultant or like a impact director. So doing a bit of analysis and a bit of consultancy, but nothing like professional, nothing big, just kind of like volunteering on the side. But that experience is what kind of leveraged to then switch into data analytics. And I joined a company called the Information Lab, which train people from whatever background you are in data analytics. So you learn tools like Power BI, Ultrix, Tableau from the ground up. So you don't need to have a particular kind of technical background. They teach you from the basics to the top. And then after that, yeah, I went on to work at PwC, Everton Football Club. I'm now actually working at Ralph Lauren. So gone like a full journey since then.
All kinds of places need statistics that
Exactly.
you
Yeah.
wouldn't even imagine did.
That's the thing. I mean, data can be cool, and I think it's one of those things people always think is super nerdy. But depending on the kind of data you work with and the industry you're in as well, it can actually be quite interesting.
Well, yeah, the nerds think it's nerdy. A lot of
Yeah,
us
exactly.
run from the statistics. Statistics is mandatory for your degree. Oh, please, no.
Mm. Yeah, I think it is sometimes maybe the way it's like phrased in schools as well, is maybe it's like portrayed as something that's like far too difficult for me. And maybe that's like a narrative that does need changing as well to make it more inviting to everyone from any background. But there's a lot of stuff out there where you can like really pick up different tools. So part of the information lab application process is you actually have to create a dashboard yourself using Tableau, even if you have zero experience in it. But they like send you videos and they actually make videos at the information lab as well that are tutorials, and that's something that I was also encouraged to do as well during my time there. So it creates this circular loop. You bring in someone who doesn't know anything, they make a video for someone who doesn't know anything, and then it has that continuous cycle, which is really nice. So
I've
it really
I've
does help
always
that out
always
there.
found that teaching it is the best way to learn it.
Exactly. Yeah. It was like an Albert Einstein thing, and he said if you can teach it to a 5-year-old, then you know it like really, really well.
Yeah, you've mastered it when you
Yeah.
can give a 5-year-old the basics. I agree with that. So, what was your experience when you were entering into the world of STEM? You mentioned you walked through the door of chemistry. We have that in common.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that early stage in your career when you first entered into STEM.
Yeah. When I was in school, I think like at the time, I didn't really see any sort of like gender imbalance or anything like that. Like it, because I think it's a subject that people generally think, oh, it's like kind of mandatory or really good to study. So I didn't really see kind of any imbalance or anything like that there. When I went to university, again, it was like I'd say generally quite mixed, but there weren't a lot of colored people in my course. So that was like something that stood out to me. And then I think when it really hit me was when I did my first placement, which was through the Engineering Development Trust. And that was when I was working in a water analytics and robotics lab. So they make things like robots for the Iron Man film, which is very cool. But they also create kind of water cleaning products as well, which is what I was working on. So cleaning up dirty water and then putting it back into our taps, essentially. When I was working there, I was the only person of color and the only woman in my entire team of I think about 20. And that was when it really hit me like, okay, this is a very small space for women to be in. And I think it's also maybe the type of lab it was. Like in data at Ralph Lauren at the moment, I don't really see too much imbalance because I think it's a fashion industry
Yes.
and it's slightly different. Whereas when I was working in the lab, getting your hands dirty, getting stuck in, looking at tech, I think in those kind of fields and those roles in particular, that's where the imbalance in gender is a lot more stark. And at the time, I did feel at first a little uncomfortable. I was like, oh, should I be wearing this into work? You don't even know what, you don't feel like being like a girl anymore. It feels really weird. You always want to dress like one of the guys so you can fit in. So yeah, that was quite difficult to deal with, especially also because it was my first job out of university as well. So it was like my first real exposure to the world of work and also this kind of imbalance. But eventually, I think you just learn to be strong in yourself and make sure you have your voice heard. And when you start getting to know the team and getting to know the guys that are on the team, you learn that everyone is really in the same boat. They just look different to you. So once that sunk in, I started to feel a little bit more comfortable. But I would say it did take time. And what really helped was just really getting to know people just on a one-to-one level, forming those relationships. And then eventually, when you've found that community, you just feel more secure where you are and don't feel so alone anymore, even if you did at first and don't necessarily look the same as everyone else.
Yeah, and I think that's not an uncommon experience because educational realms tend to be a lot more balanced today than they were,
Yeah.
for example, when I was coming up through middle school, high school, college. And so, yeah, I think there's a certain amount of shock that happens when you go into the workplace and it's like, what do you mean I'm the only woman at the
Yeah.
table? You know, this, hang on. And then you run into social conventions that haven't completely gone away. Like, can you fix the coffee? Can you take the notes? Can you,
Yeah.
all this womany type stuff that gets thrown your way that it should be just shared within the team.
Exactly, yeah. And I think it's important to remember that that isn't you. Like you are so worth so much more. And I think it does take a while for you to build up that confidence to say, no, can I try this? Or I want to do some soldering or fix this mechanical machine. And as long as it does take for you to push that and ask for that, but it's important to just really not forget your worth in those kind of situations or to feed into the stereotype. Otherwise, you're only hurting yourself and your future progression.
Yeah, exactly. I talked to a guest the other day about strategic incompetence. And you'll see guys trot that out, but I
Yeah.
honestly used my own version of that when I was new in corporate because when the coffee thing came around my direction, I'm like, coffee? Oh no, I don't drink coffee. You really don't want me fixing your coffee.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think I
And
know where to start.
It worked out in my favor. They didn't ask me to do that again. So,
Good.
so as much as it gets leveraged against us, we can use that tact back
Yeah,
sometimes too. Now,
exactly.
if you're a coffee addict, I'm afraid that probably won't work for you. You'll be outed at some point.
Uh,
Ah, so, what were some of the challenges that you ran into, and how did you choose to deal with those?
some of the challenges was first of all, not having that technical background like at all. Like I said, I really couldn't code. I didn't really know much about data, although I had a small flavor of it. And as a university in societies, like nothing to the level that you really need for a job.
Right.
So I think something that really helped me was I'm definitely just using all the resources and things that are online, like just pretty putting yourself out there, reaching out to people at different events, like just showing up. So people can see your face, they know you. So when I did go to events, different conferences, watching webinars, people recognize you, then you reach out to them on maybe places like LinkedIn, and you can ask for them, is it possible if you just walk me through something or share any resources that you have to help you teach or how you taught yourself a particular skill. So forming relationships like that and building that community really did help me. And there's also the Women in Data, which is a massive community of females who are in data professions, from coders all the way to analysts to even working in operations and leads, like the full scale. And that was a really nice community when I joined. They have a massive flagship event in the UK that happens in every March. And that's when they just bring women together from all different fields and just for you to essentially meet each other. And they always talk about how little women are actually recognized in data. So if you look at health or even the seatbelt, for example, is tested on a man, but it's applied to a guy,
Yes,
applied to girls, right? So,
exactly.
they talk about these kind of issues and why women need to fill out the surveys and share their voice so much more so that we can be represented in the statistics and then also be represented in the solution. Even like with AI, for example, they showed if you type in like give me a picture of a woman, obviously it comes up with a certain outfit or a certain type of
Yeah.
person.
Oh my
So
heavens.
yeah,
Yes.
there's all these
Don't
issues.
ask for fantasy style. Let me just cue you
Yeah,
in on that. Don't ask
exactly.
for
Oh my God.
fantasy style because you will get something that AI is not supposed to put out there. And then if you ask it
Exactly.
using the proper anatomical terms to please cover the gazongas,
Yeah,
it will go, you can't use that language with me. Oh, so you can give them to me on full display, but I can't ask you to cover them up. Okay.
that's the thing. Yeah, it has no censor in one direction, but in the other direction, it's completely censored, you know? So, yeah, there are all these biases they talk about, which is really nice to, I mean, obviously, it's not nice to know that they exist, but it's nice to hear about it in a space where you
Yeah.
really do feel safe. And Women in Data, they also hold like a lot of webinars and events where you can actually go there and learn in person how to do SQL or do Power BI and all these skills that you need to go into data analytics. So that definitely helped me, and it was a big challenge when I didn't have the technical skills. And then, yeah, forming those relationships just made me not feel so alone in a space,
Yes.
yeah, which is dominated a lot by men. But also to add to that, working in certain industries does definitely help. Like at PwC, most people there who are in data working in that area were mostly men.
See, tell us what that stands for.
Our PricewaterhouseCoopers house.
Thank you.
There, a lot of the people in the data field, they were mostly men, but then take Ralph Lauren as an example, like a lot of them are women because it's a fashion industry. So there is a lot of differences depending on the industry. That's definitely something to look into because you can work in a technical field, but in a non-technical space. And in that way, actually, you probably feel a lot more welcome than you would if you're still doing what you enjoy.
Yeah, I love that. And the thing that you were trained to do, because so many women spend a lot of time and effort becoming subject matter experts, getting their
Yeah.
training, and then you get out into your first job and you've run up against the realities of being the only woman in the world, the realities of being the only woman in the room. And
Yeah.
it can be difficult and it wears on you after a while. So it's nice to know there are places you can look for that are tech adjacent that still need those technical skills. I like that.
Yeah.
So we are up on our first break already. And I like to give the listeners a little bit of something to think about as we go into the commercial break. What would be a good thought exercise for us around the topic of going into STEM as a woman?
I guess it could probably be, what skills do you think that you lack, and what's one small step you can take to learn?
I like that. Okay. So think about the gap that needs to be filled to take you to where you want to be and hang with us. We'll be right back from the break.
Oh, check it loud, but we'll hear. Tech is ours and we show no fear. No fear. No fear. No fear.
Thanks for hanging in with us through the break. This is your host, Zofia Morales. I'm back with the amazing and wonderful Juhie Radia. And before the break, we asked you to spend a little time thinking about where you may or may not have a skill gap for that next thing that you want to evolve into. And I guess I will just put out there that there are technical skill gaps, the hard science aspects, but then there are also the softer aspects in terms of leadership and assertiveness and the sort of thing that can also be a skill that's needed to move you to that next level. So if you just focused on technical skills, I'm going to advise that you also think about some of the peripheral stuff as well. Was there anything you wanted to share about the challenges that you faced as you were going through?
Going through data analytics or
Well, going into STEM through STEM, I know there are female specific things that sometimes come up, and sometimes there are what appear to be ethnic things that come up that can lead to some uncomfortable moments.
yeah, like I said, when I was at that first kind of grad job, yeah, being the person of color as well, I think yeah, that was a challenge that I didn't really touch on, and that it did affect me in the sense that I didn't see someone who looked like me, and that can be a little demoralizing and demotivating, and that you always feel more alone because there's no one at the top who looks like you that you can aspire to or learn from. And when I think about it now, I just sat with it and I didn't really know what to do about it or do anything at the time. But looking back, what helped was I did a lot work like in the voluntary capacity. So even though I wasn't seeing role model figures in the actual company I was in my specific kind of professional line of work, I was seeing it in other spaces. It's also important to kind of zoom out of your own career and of your own like bubble, because I think it's really easy to get bogged down in it, and then when you don't see someone who looks like you, is not from your background or culture. I also felt like I had to hide my culture as well at the time. Like I always wanted to be more British, less Indian, just to try and fit in, which I shouldn't have done, because at the end of the day, I do feel the responsibility is on me to really teach people about my culture and about my background. And there's no other way that other people will learn to respect it without me putting myself on the line like that. But even though, like I said, I didn't see anyone in my line of work who was in leadership role, I saw it elsewhere. It does help to pivot, move your head a little bit and see what else is out there, because sometimes it just might be the industry you're in or in that particular company that you don't see that representation.
Yeah.
And there are other roles that are beyond just like an engineer or an electrician. Being in data analytics, our CMO is a woman, and so is our head of director. It just depends where you look, which industry you're looking at and companies. So it does definitely help when you have that loneliness feeling, is just trying to see beyond your tunnel vision route.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there are two really important things I think you said there, which was when you are the only in your organization, zooming out to the wider industry can be helpful.
Yeah.
I think that's really important. Hang on. And the other thing that you said there that I think is really important, and I will acknowledge that it's a burden, but it's like a catch-22, which is
Yeah.
you do have to educate the people around you on your experience and what you're bringing to the table and your differentness as much as emphasizing your sameness. I know I had this conversation with a colleague of mine, and she let me in on the Juneteenth thing long before Juneteenth became a big national media thing. And I'd had no idea, right?
Yeah.
Completely clueless. And she educated me on a number of experiences like that that people of color have had in the US. And one day she was tired. She was having a bad day. And she's like, I don't understand why it's always on me. Can't you people just educate yourselves? And it's like, I really feel your frustration, but who do I turn to for that education?
Yeah.
Because the educational system is not providing that.
Yeah.
And my family, my local culture did not experience that. So I didn't pick it up that way. The only way I'm going to learn about that is through somebody who has that as part of their experience. So
Yeah.
I feel her frustration and I feel her desire for people to make more of an effort to learn and understand. But who do we have to go to? The people who've actually experienced it. And so it comes around and you're still going to be explaining.
Yeah, and I don't know, I always prefer if someone asks than assumes as well.
Yes.
Like even asking things of how do you actually pronounce someone's name rather than just going with it and getting it wrong for years. You know,
Yeah.
I think these are small things, and I think it's on people to just have that respect for each other. And I know it's not common for everyone. And that's why, in a way, I don't always blame certain men if they don't know that they need to act a certain way around, like when you're in a group of women, for example, is the education that needs to be a lot better, because you get to a point where you're older and it's harder to help people who are stuck in their ways.
Yes.
It's really important to remain open and hopefully we change the system and improve the education so people can actually just be better with each other.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a slow process. If you
Yeah.
look at back at the Juneteenth situation, that's something that has actually come out in the US to the national awareness now finally. And
Yeah.
you can say Juneteenth, and there's more understanding of what comes along with that than there used to be. So I think progress is being made because people have been willing to talk about and answer these questions and get past the
Yeah.
educate the other people fatigue. But yeah, it needs to be an ongoing thing, and there is progress that can be made. So if you're feeling frustrated about that, know that yes, it's okay that you're frustrated and you are making progress, you are getting traction, even if it
Yeah.
doesn't feel like it in the moment.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong, I also get really tired of explaining myself and explaining what Indian means and what my background is and all of these things. But I just know that if I want to be representative of my community, I do have to also be the advocate for it. If I want to see any change, I need to be the change maker. And it's unfortunate, but that's a responsibility you take on. And it is almost better for them to hear it from your experience and from an actual person than to Google it and then learn the wrong stuff.
Yes.
So yeah, I do, that's why I don't mind it so much. I'm okay with it.
I love that. That's a good mindset around it. So tell me a little bit about being the King's Ambassador. What's a King's Ambassador? How does that happen? And how does this get women better representation in STEM?
Yeah, so the King's Ambassador is within the Industrial Cadets, which is a program run by the Engineering Development Trust, and they are a charity that want to encourage more young people to pursue STEM, and they specifically also look to encourage more young women as well to go after STEM careers. So what the Industrial Cadets program actually is, it's a badge, like kind of sequence of badges. So you can get the Challenger badge, bronze, silver, gold, and platinum. So when I did my first job out of university, that was the job that Engineering Development Trust, that charity, actually helped me to get, and that was part of their Platinum Industrial Cadets badge. So these programs is where they go into different schools. So if, for example, you are looking to get the bronze badge, that I'm pretty sure is for people who are the age of 11 to 13, and we run different projects with schools. For example, one of them I did recently was invent a technology product that can help in the health field, and that's pretty much all there is in the brief, and it's on the students to come up with different ideas and in that way apply the theory that they're learning in school to like a real world problem, and then they have a chance to present that, and they also get a mentor as well. So I was mentoring a team of young girls who came up with the idea of making smart glasses to help elderly people who are suffering from dementia, to give them prompters if someone walks into the room, to remind them of their name or to
Oh,
remind them to take their pills or something. And this is crazy to think that 11 to 13-year-old women came up with this idea, which is actually very, very feasible. And they
well,
presented this and
and
they
hugely thoughtful about what that experience is. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. And what they put together, they had done the surveys with all of their like grandparents and put together a whole data set there. They made a prototype as well and done all the electrical wiring as well to show how something like this could work in a prototype. And eventually they won the national prize as well. So it was such a good program that supported me. And it's really nice to now actually go that full circle and support the next generation as well. And in that way is how I became the King's Ambassador, just by closing that loop a little more and becoming the advocate rather than just the person receiving the benefits of that program.
Nice, nice. So is that like a UK only program, or do they reach out into a wider sphere as well?
At the moment, as I understand it, the Engineering Development Trust, it's looking to grow more in the UK. They do try to stem across the entire thing, but they're still trying to just push more on that. But I'm hoping once they're more established, there's something that can be applied to other countries, or if there are similar organizations, there's the opportunity for partnerships, because they do partner with other companies and organizations so that they can have placements. For example, like I worked in that lab, and that was with the Engineering Development Trust. That was that partnership that they have there. So there is a lot of scope and opportunity to take this beyond the UK, but definitely I think there's a good working model here that hopefully can be applied elsewhere.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. I know you were recently awarded a top 20 women in data and tech. How did that come about? Tell us a little bit about what that award is and how it
Yeah.
arrived in your world.
Yeah, so the top 20 women in data and tech, that is within the women in data community that I mentioned. So the one that holds like the massive flagship and brings people together, talking about like the discrimination of women in data. And the way that came about was, so in my voluntary capacity, so not in my professional work, I try to be an advocate for using data for good. So, for example, unearthing the issues that are faced in the global south and making the stats there and the issues there and challenges more visible so that policies and other solutions can be devised at a higher level that support those people. Even if you can't go there to see them or you haven't got their experience, the data is what can be resurfaced and make those issues known. So what I had done is I was representing the UK as their youth delegate at the G7 last year, and I had put together a bunch of data that I'd used to feed the policy proposals that I then devised and presented to G7 leaders, and then later had the chance to deliver that to Downing Street, which is our UK Prime Minister, and our Deputy Mayor as well. So that is eventually what led me to be nominated and become one of the top 20 women data in this year. And it was also really nice to be among the other 19 candidates as well and hear about their stories and how they're using data for good, because it's usually by nomination as well. And a lot of women don't really put themselves on the line, or they would never self-nominate because I don't know, I think they feel
It
embarrassed.
feels a little
confident.
cringy to nominate
Yeah,
yourself.
right.
Yeah.
So it's nice that like kind of community, we're all, you have that kind of disbelief, like, oh, am I really, I'm not even good.
Yeah,
Like,
am
I
I
didn't
all
do that
that?
much.
Am I really all that in a side of chips?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that was what it was. And the way they go about it, they take you to a big photo shoot and they have a theme every year. So the theme that I was a part of was make your own story or make your own movie. So it's like that woman, so that female is their own character in the film. And I could not think of anything else except Frozen for some reason. So Frozen was what was on my mind. And I was like manifesting Elsa, and they played like the Frozen soundtrack and they take these pictures of you, which like honestly it felt really weird because they make you pose in a certain way and they've done your hair and makeup in a way that
Oh,
maybe you're
yeah.
not used to.
Yeah, yeah. And some
But
of the poses feel super awkward. They look fine in the
yeah.
photo, but it feels weird.
Exactly. But then when you look back at it and I see that picture now, I'm like, oh, I never knew I could look like that. And other people, they see you in a different light as well because you look fierce, you look confident, you look bold because the photographer is amazing. She's called Sane Seven and she just knows how to capture these glimpses of amazingness. I don't know how else to explain it. And she captures it, and she like, yeah, puts this portfolio together of the top 20 women every year, telling their story, and yeah, trying to encourage more young women to go into data, but also advocate to use it for good. Because people forget that data isn't just a technical thing. It is a powerful tool that can unearth challenges, which can really go on to make a lot of big systemic change across the world.
Absolutely, because the data pool you use to make your decision is what informs the policy. And
Exactly.
if the data pool is missing large chunks, it's not reflecting the female experience, it's not reflecting other ethnic experiences, you end up with policies that hurt and that people resent more than
Yeah, no,
anything. Yeah.
exactly. And the issue is that a lot of policymakers, they don't come from data backgrounds, so they don't have the skills, like they don't know to look at data. So
They don't know to question it even,
exactly,
right?
yes. So they need the help. If you can be that person who can show a stat or make a visualization, then, if it's one of those that are like at a glance, they can see it, there's an issue here, then politicians who barely have time or the technical skills to do that themselves can now actually hopefully do something that can really make impact, that's targeted and strategic, as opposed to just a vague policy they throw out there. Or at least that's the hope that I have. I mean, whether or not we'll see that, I'm not sure, but that's at least why I'm trying to do what I do, to make sure that we do have better policies that are more robust.
I love that. So we are up on our second break already. Let's see, what should we think about during this particular commercial break?
So maybe beyond your career, so beyond your one tunnel, what else could you do? Like, what communities could you reach?
Okay. And that doesn't always need to be a huge time commitment. I know a lot of women are like, oh, another thing on my plate. But
Yeah.
a lot of times you get a lot back from that as well, because when you widen your world where you're giving, you also widen the net from which you can receive. So it's
Exactly.
a worthwhile investment. Spend a little time around what are you passionate about and how can you step in and have a greater impact, and hang with us. We'll be right back from the break.
Oh, shout it loud, the world here. Tech is ours and we show no fear. No fear. No fear. No fear.
Thanks for hanging in with us through the break. This is Zofia Morales. I'm back with the amazing, wonderful Juhie Radia. And so over the break, we were thinking about places where we can make a bigger splash, have a bigger impact, reach a wider network of people, and receive from a wider network of people. Because I know a lot of times you go out with the intention to give, but a lot of times you do get back from the experience, whether it's in terms of connections, just plain emotional, moral support. It can be so helpful. So, what has your experience been of doing these things beyond your paycheck?
I think I've been quite lucky in the sense that like I'm still living with my parents, and I think that really does make a difference and help a lot, because I know doing this kind of like dual, I get this like massive side hustle, volunteering and going to things like the G7. I also went to COP as well. It's not always feasible for everyone. So I do first of all feel very, very lucky. But my experience, I think, has been nothing but positive from doing it, because I think sometimes when you're in your job, it's not always, you didn't progress maybe as quickly as you want, or you didn't get championed and recognized. And I think if I only had that, I'd probably feel pretty demotivated. But then when I'm mentoring a group of students who are coming up with glasses that can support people with dementia, and they're winning the national prize, like I feel a huge sense of fulfillment, and I feel really rewarded by enabling that. And it was like a really small thing. I just took out, I think, 30 minutes of my lunch break every Monday, and I work from home on Monday, so it wasn't like a huge kind of like big chunk of my day or anything. But that mentorship meant that they had the tools and the resources and expertise they needed to like really do something amazing. So yeah, I think like even if it doesn't give back to you like in anything like tangible, I think emotionally I felt so much better. And I now felt more motivated for the job, even though I wasn't getting a lot from it. And even in terms of learning soft skills, so going to places like COP and putting myself on a panel, putting myself on the line, talking about AI and climate, which is really not my, like, I'd say, like, field of expertise. But when you put yourself there, you have to make sure you deliver on that panel. And there I can learn like public speaking skills. I learned how to negotiate, which is not something I would do in my data analytics career, like at all, like pretty much. So I've learned a lot more soft skills and built relationships with people all over the world, which yeah, have been completely invaluable. And maybe one day that network will also give back to me if I ever needed anything too. So I think it's definitely worth putting yourself out there and seeing what more there is beyond your career.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think the other thing I want to throw out there is a lot of times as women, we feel like people are dumping a lot of stuff on us, right?
Yeah,
And so if you're in a spot in your life right now where you like literally are not sleeping enough,
yeah, no, no, no.
don't feel like we're going, you need to go do this in your life right now, because we
Yeah.
move through cycles and our availability to do these kinds of things will ebb and flow, and
Yeah, no,
if,
exactly.
yeah.
I
And
couldn't do this
so,
forever.
yeah, exactly. And there will probably become a stage in your life with marriage and kids and whatever where you have to pull back for a little while, but then the kids become more independent and things shift and there's a possibility again. So if you're in a stage in your life, don't guilt yourself. Just go, okay, stage I'm in, but we'll hold this thought for when this stage passes.
Exactly. Yeah, I definitely don't plan on doing this forever, and I'm already thinking about how can I cut back. So it's not for everyone, and it depends on yeah what's going on for you.
Absolutely. So, what advice do you have for a young woman who's entering STEM at this stage of her career, who's young and gung ho? And what advice do you have for her?
My advice would be, and I think I've said it multiple times throughout, is really just put yourself on the line, like put yourself out there. And it took me ages to learn to do that. And I was really lucky to be under the umbrella of the Engineering Development Trust when I finished university, because they, I think, were the first kind of organization to give me the chance to be on a panel at a conference called Anthropy, which is the UK Davos, is kind of how I think about it.
Nice.
And there I was on a panel talking about literally this, how to get more young women into STEM and what advice I had. And you don't realize that your experience is actually your expertise. Like, I was really wondering, looking on Google, like, oh yeah, what advice would you give to someone? But to be honest, I know, and that is to like literally just put yourself out there and to also be curious as well. So it's completely okay to not know everything, and no one does. I mean, any guy or anyone who looks that confident, it's all just a mask. And I
Yes,
think
and if
for
they tell you they do, you know for a fact
it's
they
yeah,
don't.
you know it's not true. And the thing is that it's important to remember that, like, a lot of the time, like, it is just a mask. And I think women are actually the ones who unmask a lot more, because there's a bond that can be made around not knowing something, and that's okay. And it's just about asking the right questions, talking to people so that you can learn, and going online or doing like courses or whatever to like, teach yourself Tableau or Power BI. There is so much information out there. And I think I've also done a couple of blogs and videos myself to try and help simplify how learning data so that anyone can kind of pick it up and learn different parts of it. So yeah, definitely staying curious, asking the right questions, being in the right spaces as well. And sometimes as well, you can be in a conference or an event and you don't really get much value from it. And that's okay if it didn't work out that one time, but don't let that deter you from like future ones. Definitely still show up, because you never know when you'll have that like right person that you'll meet, and that will change everything or teach you something that you didn't
Yeah,
know. I had a
opens
friend
open
who
doors you didn't imagine could open. But
exactly.
you mentioned you were at the UK version of Davos,
Yeah.
and I can imagine listeners going, wow, if I were even halfway connected to anybody who's invited to attend Davos. But
Yeah.
the thing that we don't oftentimes recognize is you're probably not that distantly connected to somebody
Yeah.
who does run in those circles. I sent an email to my list ages ago about the fact that I actually am acquainted with someone who's won the Nobel Prize.
Oh, wow. See,
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly. And it's not a first level connection, it's a second level connection,
Yeah.
but he recognizes my face and I recognize his face. And if I did want to connect with him on something, he would take that call.
Yeah.
So I think it's always worth being curious about the people around you because you never know who's pool boy, you know.
Yeah, like I had a friend who was at that UK Davos and she just met someone on the bus and she didn't really know who they were. And turns out her husband works for a big airline company and my friend wanted to become a pilot and now she is training to become a pilot through that random connection while she's
On
at
the
that
bus.
on the
Yes.
bus. Yeah. Because you don't know whose network is kind of who everyone's network is. And their network then becomes your network. And yeah, forming those connections to get your way and navigate your way through.
Yeah. And the curiosity is the thing that opens the door a lot of times.
Yeah.
I love that. So we've got just a few minutes here at the end of the show. What changes would you like to see if you could wave your little magic wand and shift some stuff for women around their career profession in STEM? What would that be?
Something that I definitely hope to see and I'm also working on is an improvement in our education. I really, really feel that it is outdated, especially with the evolving tech industry, climate being a huge thing as well. I'm running my own climate workshop, the employability skills workshops in schools to try to bridge that gap, but it needs to be nationalized because if we can have everyone feeling confident to pursue whatever dream it is that they want to go after, then we'll have a better workforce, we'll have a better prepared workforce, and we'll have longevity as well. No company has to fumble around trying to think about, hey, what's going to be our 5-year plan when our whole workforce won't be here anymore. Just hire and train like younger people, the next generation. So I think it's really building those bridges, like companies lending out an olive branch to younger people to help them, to help nurture them into the future leaders that they are more than capable of becoming. So if I could, wave a magic wand, I would definitely want to improve the education system because it's not fair that young people are not prepared for the future that they're going to be a part of.
Yeah, I think there has historically been a significant disconnect since the Industrial Revolution
Yeah,
between what you're taught in school and what you really need when you move into the work world.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And it's not just on teachers to do that. Like it has to come from the top down because teachers need support too. It's the whole system that kind of needs like a wake up call. So yeah, I don't know when that's going to happen, but I hope it's soon.
Yeah, exactly. And having these conversations starts to open those doors and inform the
Yeah.
other conversations. And again, data, more data is a beautiful
Exactly.
thing.
Get the data out there. We've got to resurface as much as we can.
I love that. So, dear listener, if you're out there, you've listened to this and you're like, ooh, I would like to contact Juhie, you can look in the show notes. It's on both Libsyn and on YouTube. We'll have everything you need to be able to reach out to her and connect, whether it's for talking about a problem you have, collaborating with somebody on a project, or one of the organizations that she's mentioned she's connected to. I really heartily encourage you to reach out because together we are stronger and we can do more. And so, yes, I love that. Final words of wisdom before we wrap for the day, Juhie.
Well, I feel like, you know what, it's weird because I don't feel very
Pressure.
wise, you
Oh,
know?
the
Yeah, the
pressure's right
pressure.
on there.
I think words of wisdom probably just to realize that you're so much more than your everyday and you can have so much more impact than you realize is just finding that right community, finding the right relationship in place where you can really grow and get your spotlight and enjoy the limelight because you deserve it.
I love that. I love that. Thank you so much for spending today with me. I really
Yeah, of
appreciate you.
course. Yeah, no, thank you so much for having me as well. It's a really nice and cathartic to talk about all my experiences too.
And thank you, dear listener, for joining us. I hope we've brought you value. That's always my goal every week. I would love to hear from you, your reaction to the show. Go ahead and drop a note below if you're on YouTube, or you can send me a quick email to Zofia@steminstilettos.com. I read everything that comes in, so I do want to hear from you. Did you enjoy it? Did you hate it? Is there someone else I should be talking to? Is there an issue you'd like to see us address or take on? I love all of that. And until next week, go out, be bold. be beautiful, and be authentically you.